It's time to head back onto the dimly lit streets of film noir to explore 4 more underappreciated gems of the crime genre. These are stories of desperation, obsession, greed, and betrayal, all directed by some of the classic era's most renowned directors. As always, you will find the links to the films so you can watch them for free in the description below. So let's turn up our collars, adjust the brims to our fedoras, and head out into the night. The setup. Starring Robert Ryan, one of classic Hollywood's most underrated actors, 1949's The Setup tells the story of aging boxer Stoker Thompson. Stoker travels the boxing circuit where he has the reputation of being a predictable loser. His long-suffering wife Julie, played by Audrey Totter, wants him to give up the ring and move on before it's too late.
Springfield, Middletown, Unionville, Paradise City. How many more beatings do you have to take?
But Stoker's got a big, tall wish.
If I can get over him tonight, that'll mean a rematch. That's a semi-wind-up, 150 guarantee. Maybe a top spot even.
On this one night, he's got a feeling. He thinks he can win. What Stoker doesn't know is that he's got such a reputation for losing that his manager and trainer have fixed the fight without telling him, which puts his dreams on a dangerous collision course with the opportunistic greed and the deceit of others. Directed by Robert Wise, The Setup takes place in real time over the course of 73 minutes. Co-starring George Tobias, Wallace Ford, and James Edwards, the seedy world of the boxing circuit is presented as a shady racket, a place where men are paid to take falls for money and keep taking punches long after they should have turned their backs on the ring. For Ryan, usually cast in the role of the heavy or villain, The Setup gives him an opportunity to explore a more vulnerable side of his persona. As Stoker, he says very little in the film. He's mostly reacting to those around him, but he's sympathetic. He loves his wife, and he knows she's fed up with the life they are living. But he's also driven to prove that he can be a winner before he gets too old to dream. Somewhere in the Night. 1946's Somewhere in the Night stars John Hodiak as George Taylor, a Marine wounded on Okinawa. When he awakens in a military hospital, he's suffering from amnesia. George, if that's his real name, pretends that he's fully recovered in order to be discharged. He heads to Los Angeles in an effort to piece together his forgotten life, with only 2 clues to his past: an unsigned letter from a spurned lover,
that I shall pray as long as I live for someone or something to hurt and destroy you,
and a note from a Larry Cravat, telling him about a mystery bank account. In the midst of attempting to find clues to his true identity and recover his memory, George immediately becomes embroiled in the mystery of a murder, a missing $2 million, and the disappearance of one Larry Cravat.
I was looking for Cravat, Larry Cravat.
A man who seems to be working very hard not to be found.
Larry Cravat come in yet, honey?
Larry Cravat? I'm sorry, I wouldn't know.
With the help of a sympathetic nightclub singer named Christy, played by the sultry Nancy Guild, George's search for the truth and the hunt for the elusive Larry Cravat leads him into a dangerous world of hired thugs, crooked cops, and a cast of shady characters, all on the hunt for that $2 million. Directed by Joseph Mankiewicz, and co-starring Lloyd Nolan, Richard Conte, and Josephine Hutchinson in a brief but truly heartbreaking scene. Somewhere in the Night is a tense, moody thriller, highlighted by a darkly captivating and sometimes frantic performance by another underrated classic-era actor, John Hodiak. In the end, George comes to the realization that the home front can be just as dangerous as the battlefield, and some secrets are better left in the dark. Ladies in Retirement. Starring Ida Lupino, Louis Hayward, Elsa Lanchester, Edith Barrett, and Evelyn Keyes, and directed by Charles Vidor, Ladies in Retirement centers around Lupino's Ellen Creed. Her family was once well off, but they've fallen on hard times, and now she works as a housekeeper/companion for a former actress, Leonore Fisk, played by Isabel Elsom. Fisk has a nice, comfortable life in the country financed by her old paramours from her acting days, while Ellen has 2 sisters, Louisa and Emily, in danger of being evicted from their lodgings in London. Ellen convinces Miss Fisk to let her bring her sisters down to visit for a couple of days.
Oh, very well, my dear. You bring them with you by all means for a day or two.
That couple of days turns out to be far longer than Miss Fisk expects.
They look harmless.
And Ellen's sisters are, well, they're just a little odd.
I saw a drowned man once. They took him out of the Thames. He was green.
I don't like people to touch me.
I sometimes walk about the house all night.
Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong.
When the entire Creed family faces being put out, Ellen takes drastic and murderous steps to keep her family together. And then must work to keep her crime secret and her sister safe.
I had a funny dream last night.
Oh, did you?
I dreamt Miss Fisk was dead.
Ladies in Retirement features Ida Lupino in a transformative role. The actress, just 22 at the time, convinced Columbia and Charles Vidor that she could play a 40-year-old woman. And there's a coiled restraint to her performance. It's very controlled, very focused. The standouts here for me are really Elsa Lanchester and Edith Barrett. Remember her from Strangers in the Night?
Where is Rosemary?
As Louisa and Emily. Their performances are darkly comedic and hilariously unhinged. While the film leans heavily towards gothic melodrama, it also sits nicely in the category of Victorian noir, alongside films like Gaslight, Hangover Square, and The Stranger, with the flawed and morally ambiguous Ellen as its center. Along with the unrelenting sense of dread and approaching disaster, the lonely, isolated, fog-shrouded moors become the perfect place for murder. Fallen Angel. 1945's Fallen Angel has sort of faded into the background behind 1944's classic Laura. Both produced by 20th Century Fox, Fallen Angel reteams Laura's star Dana Andrews and director Otto Preminger in a darker and seedier story set in the small-town world of con artists, sleazy diners, and cheap apartments. Dana Andrews plays Eric Stanton,
your ticket ran out the last stop.
who, because he's down to his last dime, finds himself stuck in the small town of Walton, California. He manages to hook up with a couple of con men and becomes the hype man for John Carradine's Professor Madley, a man who claims to contact the dead through hosting spiritual seances.
I can feel his troubled spirit trying to get through.
While in Walton, Eric decides that he's going to hook himself a wealthy society woman, and he sets his eyes on June Mills, played by Alice Faye. June is quiet and sweet and somewhat guarded, and Eric's plan is to woo her, get her to fall for him, and then scam her out of her money. He's got plans for that money. He's going to use it to run off and marry Stella, played by Linda Darnell, a waitress at the local diner, and the town's siren.
I want a home.
I'll get it for you.
What with? $1 in your pocket?
$12,500.
Where would you get $12,500?
What's the difference? As long as I get it.
Where June is sweet and quiet and rich, Darnell is slightly more hard-boiled, worldly, and working class. Darnell always had a knack for playing these type of women, the working class woman from the wrong side of the tracks.
You talk different, sure. But you drive just like the rest. Well, you got the wrong girl.
And she gives them an authenticity where they could easily be caricatures. Stella is mostly disinterested in Eric, but he's obsessed with her and truly believes once he secures June's money, he can win her over. Only poor Stella is murdered before any of that can happen, and Eric becomes the #1 suspect. Fallen Angel also reunites Preminger with his Laura cinematographer, Joseph Lachelle, and composer David Raxon. Preminger's direction is heavy with shadows and figures looming in the frame. Working to build the suspense, the film is also notable in that it features top-billed Alice Faye, who starred in musicals and comedies, in her first straight dramatic role. Fallen Angel is a film that can stand on its own without comparison, and although initially it's a story of lies, obsession, and deception, in the end it reveals that the light of redemption can shine into the darkest shadows.
I'll listen, Stella.
I stick to a deal.
There are 8 million stories in the cinema cities. This has been one.